You're halfway through a great point, you've done your research, you have the data, and for once, the room is actually listening. You can feel the momentum. And then, out of nowhere, someone starts talking. It's not a quick yeah or nod of agreement. This person, let's call him Stan, he doesn't just interrupt your sentence, he hijacks the entire energy of the room. In that split second, you feel yourself physically shrinking. Your shoulders tighten, your voice retreats, and you suddenly feel like a guest in your own meeting. Now, you're faced with a choice. Do you try to claw back control and look desperate? Or do you smile along and look invisible? Before you answer that question, here is a question we rarely ask. What yielding cues did you send to Stan that made it feel it was okay to do so? Most people think the loudest person has the most power in the room. That's a myth. Power doesn't belong to the one who barks. It belongs to the one who understands positioning and how to exactly control the flow. I used to have a Stan in my workplace. We were in a strategy meeting, and I was explaining a new direction for our marketing, which was pretty important. And right in the middle of my sentence, Stan jumped in. He didn't even acknowledge what I was saying. He started talking about a client he just signed and how great his personal course was doing. He basically turned my strategy session into his highlight reel. I tried to do the professional thing. I waited for a gap. I tried to say something like, if we could just finish this first. But Stan just talked even louder. He didn't wait for a gap. He created one by sheer force of volume. I could feel my hands start shaking under the table. It's that feeling when your body realizes you're being erased. As my hand shook, I could feel my weight in the room evaporating. It took me a while to realize that Stan wasn't the problem. As a matter of fact, my reaction to Stan was the problem. I was giving him green lights I didn't even know I had. Before we talk about the 3-step framework I used to control the flow, and Stan, here's what's actually happening beneath the surface of an interruption. It isn't about the words being said, it is a status tug-of-war. Every interaction has a status dynamic. When Stan interrupts, he's issuing a status test. He's asking, are you going to yield this territory to me? If you look down, stop talking, or worse, give him that go-ahead nod, you've lost the test. You think you're being kind and professional, but Stan, also the rest of the room, interprets that as a yielding cue. You're actually signaling that your thoughts are secondary to his volume. So, in order to stop being erased by people like Stan, you need to stop yielding. I had to develop a way to anchor myself so that even when my hands were shaking, my presence didn't move. I call this framework the presence reclamation. The essence of the presence reclamation is to shift the status dynamic without you needing to become a loud person. So the first step is, which is actually the hardest step, I call it the silent reset. Usually when someone interrupts, our instinct is to stop or raise our voices. But now, our first step is once you're aware of the interruption, you finish your immediate syllable, not the sentence, just the sound, and hold. You look them directly in the eye and you let the silence sit. Don't look away, don't nod, don't say anything. You see, silence is the ultimate status tool because it forces the interrupter to own the awkwardness they just created. The silent reset signals that the flow hasn't changed, it's just paused, and you are the one holding the remote. Now, while you're holding your silence, you need to anchor your physical presence. So I call this step the anchor. This is how you prevent your shaky hands affecting your status. For me, this meant slightly leaning toward the table and placing both my hands firmly on the surface. By widening your physical footprint and grounding your hands, you're signaling to your own nervous system, and Stan, that you aren't going anywhere. You're not only refusing to move, you're also anchoring your status. Now that you paused the noise and anchored your body, you have to take your mic back, but you do it with grace. I call the last step the reclamation. So here's what I did. I looked Stan in the eye and gave him a tiny, almost subtle nod and said, I'll get to your point in just a second. And then I immediately went back to exactly where I left off. By executing this step, you re-establish that you define the order of operations in the room. The first time I tried this on Stan, my heart was pounding, honestly. But for the first time, he actually stopped. Being heard isn't about having the biggest lungs. It's about your refusal to be erased. Your yielding cues and interaction patterns are the foundation of how people treat you. Whether you're trying to climb the ladder at work or just trying to sustain the way you see yourself, you need to learn to hold your ground. If you're interested in internal and external identity shifts, check out my other videos. This video is a core part of my Leader Self series, where we break down the psychology of how we show up in the world. Now that you know how to handle the noise in the room, what happens when the noise becomes personal? How do you know when it's time to stop fixing the relationship and start actually burning the bridge? These are the things we're going to talk about in the next episode. Hope to see you there. Bye.